Hey there.
Hi.
Good to see you. Thanks for doing this. I really do appreciate it.
No problem.
Yeah. You just sit right
so
there.
the one thing that I'm on call,
Okay.
so but
Of course.
that
If-
just means
yeah, of
that
course.
I need to.
If something happens,
something happens,
I
I gotta
completely
take care of it.
understand. Yeah, I could, of course, of course. Yeah, this is a completely an optional thing, and I'm sure what you're doing is.
So
But I do appreciate this.
No
Yeah,
problem.
Yes, please feel free.
Yeah.
So this is a show, as I was explaining to you a while ago. Basically, you'll explain one belief of yours, and I just ask you questions about the belief. And
Okay.
it's an epistemology show in the sense that I really want to know how you know the things that you know, and
Okay.
I ask you questions about that,
okay.
and that's how we do it. So I think you've probably had some time to think about the belief you'd like to discuss. Is something you'd like to chat about?
Well, I probably one of the most intense beliefs I have is that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, and the way that I came to that belief was actually I had lots of bad examples of things in my life. So I did bad things and had bad experiences with lots of bad situations.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that basically led me down a road of saying, this, like drugs, alcohol,
Yeah.
partying, girls, all that type of stuff. And none of that actually gave me any type of satisfaction long term. It was a very temporary thing, and it was gone. And it was something that, there isn't like no enjoyment in doing those things. It's just that there's some emptiness to it. And what I ended up having was a longing for something more. But what ended up being kind of like the catalyst towards that was I actually lost a son,
Oh goodness.
and he went through 4 open heart surgeries and then passed away.
Yeah.
He actually, so what happened was my wife and I had our first child was healthy, and our second child had tetralogy of Fallot.
Mm.
And when he had tetralogy of Fallot, it involved having basically 4 open heart surgeries.
Gosh.
And after the 4th open heart surgery, he was brought home, and he was playing in the back. And while he was playing on the deck in the back, he was drawing with sidewalk chalk, and he passed away. Basically, he convulsed and had his eyes roll in the back of his head. I picked him up. He said, "Ouch, it hurts," and I totally held him, and he died in my arms.
Oh goodness.
And
I can I can't imagine. I can't imagine. Gosh, that's terrible.
Well, and what that actually did was it helped me look towards, why did this happen? How did this happen? What is more than just this life? And so I started going down a road of, well, let's, basically we went to church, and one of the places that we went, basically they were teaching about Christ, and
Right.
one of the things that I did is I actually read a book called Heaven by Randy Alcorn.
Not familiar with that one.
But basically it's something where a lot of times people have misconceptions of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And what Randy Alcorn does is basically say, this is what heaven says in the Bible.
Yeah.
And this is what it looks like. This is basically how we can expect things to be. And a lot of that not just kind of gave me some hope, but it also was something where I needed to figure out, what is the belief and what exactly is it and why.
Yeah.
And I grew up in multiple other denominations and saw all sorts of different types of Christianity, but a lot of times, unfortunately, hypocrisy happens so much that those types of things are the things that drive people away from church.
Yeah.
And so, things like I was doing was hypocritical. So I was just I needed to go and figure out what is it that actually involves with actually going to heaven, and why and how do you actually even get there? And because if the Christianity belief was true, then I wanted to be where my child was, which was after death.
Right, sure.
And so, good.
Goodness, that's and thank you for sharing that story. That is, it gave me tingles when you're talking about it. It's just, I can understand where your belief is coming from. From what I'm gathering, you're telling me that you have a strong belief in Jesus Christ, and I'm trying to understand better the primary reason that you have the belief. And if I was to encapsulate that reason, it's because the tragic events that happened showed you something.
That's similar.
What did it show you?
Well, I was searching for a reason for basically life. Why exactly are we even here?
Mm-hmm.
How what's our purpose? How exactly did why did these types of things happen? And I kind of came to a place where my wife and I both were searching for these challenges and going through these together, and these answered a lot of those questions. And basically, by going down the road of saying, listening to what the Bible says, it says that basically the reason why we should believe is because even things like nature tell us that these things didn't miraculously come into existence.
Okay.
They didn't we didn't come out of a swamp, and we didn't actually have things that there is no if things haven't evolved. There's a micro evolution and a macro evolution, which basically is just you can have a bird beak change shape like Darwin saw, but jumping from all of matter was created by amoebas type of thing is kind of a longer stretch than actually even creation. It takes more faith to actually believe atheism type of stuff.
Well, maybe this will help me a little bit. If those tragic events that you went through, if those didn't happen, do you think you'd still have the belief, or do you think you wouldn't have the belief?
Well, I would say sometimes when you hit lows in life, I mean, whatever avenue you actually get there, everybody has highs and lows of life. I think that really the lows are where people seek out understanding and what exactly there's way too much suicide because people have no hope. And if people don't have any hope, then they actually kind of they feel so lost. And I mean, it would be, I don't know how somebody would make it through things if they didn't actually have.
Are you telling me that's the purpose of the belief, to give you hope?
I would say hope is one of the things that is a driving force. It also gives me peace. Gives me joy. I mean, a lot of
Go ahead.
But it gives me more of the it gives me more of a mindset of saying, hey, I went down some other roads too, which was investigating it too. So I didn't just go and believe it wholeheartedly without any type of investigation. I went through and read books and things, some like Lee Strobel, Case for Christ, and things like, even before some of that stuff was out, there was ways to look at the manuscripts and how long they've actually been around, and
I see.
A lot of that stuff actually kind of like brings around the ideas.
Well, let me ask you some more questions about that. so I can understand where you're coming from. So let's just suppose, just for the sake of just discussing this, is that, for example, Tommy is sitting next to us, and Tommy has been through some really rough periods in his life. And because of these rough periods that Tommy has been through, and he's done his research, and he's read things, and he's thought about things, and because of that, he now believes, he's become a Muslim, and he believes in Allah, right? What does that say about the belief? About do we believe can we believe what he believes, or is there something about his belief that's different than your belief? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. Basically, the big thing is that it's a choice. And that's one of the big things that we all have, is a choice of saying, what exactly do you believe in? And it's great that you say, why do you believe it? Because a lot of times people don't even know why they believe anything.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they frequently just believe things because their parents did.
Right. Would you say that his belief is ever as much as correct as your belief, or your belief is ever much as correct as his belief? Are there in equal footing, these beliefs, or are we? Is there something that I'm not seeing from what you're telling me?
Well, actually, so Jesus Christ actually said that he was the Son of God. So a big deal and a big difference between a lot of the other beliefs, and not to put theirs down in any way, shape, or form.
Sure.
But a comparison is to say they never said, the people that are in Allah never said that he was God.
Okay.
He didn't actually say that, I am God type of thing, where Jesus did.
Right.
And so the big thing is even Paul the apostle, he actually said either God is, if God actually said that, Jesus, okay, there's actually three gods in one, which is a really hard concept. But if God was really easy to understand, it would actually be something that everybody would be like God. I mean, they would be smarter than anybody else. So
are we saying that Tommy's belief, although he believes it to his core, we're saying that that belief is not necessarily true?
I believe that it is not true.
Okay. What if, and I'm not saying this is the case, but what if Tommy says something like, well, I believe that my God is true, and that you're not seeing things quite right, and that I am. And I'm trying to think of how we could decide, how we could, like, if I'm just a third party, and I'm seeing you guys talk about. You're talking about Christianity. He's talking about being a Muslim, and he's really fervent about his God being true, and you're really fervent about your God being true. And I just want to know what's true. If it's true, I want to believe it. And I'm seeing you guys talk back and forth. How could I make that decision? Is there any test we could do, or anything we could figure out that would help me make that decision?
That's an excellent question. Well, have you ever read the Bible?
Have I read the Bible?
Yeah.
No, I haven't. Yeah.
Well, I'm not part of this company or anything, but there's actually one that'll read it to you.
What's that? Oh, company. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually an app.
Yeah.
And there's lots of them.
Yeah.
A lot of people, so different people learn different ways.
Are you saying that if I listen to a Christian Bible, and let's say Tommy says, well, now I want you to read the Muslim, well, there's an app where the Muslim is the Quran is read to you.
Right.
That would be a way I could decide, and that'd be a test in some ways.
I've actually done that before. There was a friend of mine that wanted me to read through the LDS Latter-day Saints stuff. And I actually read through a great deal of it.
Right.
And came to the conclusion that that wasn't correct also. But the thing is
well, and what was it that you read in that book that showed you it wasn't correct for you?
Well, part of it's because of the history.
Okay.
If you actually read how things happened and what exactly happened in that, within LDS, they actually have how, basically, an example of how it's part of the whole history of the Latter-day Saints.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying any revelation here, but basically they say that Joseph Smith went out in the middle of a forest.
Right. Right.
He saw an angel of light that
Right.
told him how he needed to change, or he needed to not commit to any of the religions because they were all corrupt. And then he dug up a pair of golden plates and looked at them with seeing eye stones,
Yeah, I
and
remember the
translated
story.
the
Yeah.
entire
Yeah.
Bible through
Right.
that. So the thing that doesn't correspond with that is there's no evidence.
If I'm not speaking for someone who is a Mormon, but if we had someone who was a Mormon sitting next to us and they said, that story did happen because, I believe that it happened and I have faith that it did happen, what would we say about that belief? We would say it didn't happen because there's no evidence that it happened.
So Joseph Smith never actually said he was God either.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that happens within Christ is that basically you put faith in Christ as
If
your...
I could back up first. In order, just so I can understand where you're coming from, in order to be a God, a person should proclaim themselves to be is that how it works?
Yeah.
Or just trying to, okay.
Yeah, because there are what I'm trying to do is say the way that you proclaim faith
Okay.
is there's one route for the LDS and there's another route for the Christian faith that is not LDS.
Could a God be a God and not proclaim to be a God? Or am I not seeing it how you're seeing it?
So there's actually three of them. So it's actually kind of a challenge to explain, but I could explain it like this.
Yeah.
If you have three gods and they all are having a conversation in the very beginning of before the earth is even created,
Yeah.
and they're saying, like there were three of us sitting around a table and we said, hey, let us do this, and then they do that.
Okay.
So the way that happens is they each have their own function of what exactly they were doing.
Okay.
So the first God actually created all of the earth,
Okay.
and then the second God, which is Jesus, came to be salvation for the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
And all that it took to actually have that salvation was to put your faith in God. Then that is your salvation, by the way. So
Okay.
you don't have to come cleaned up. You don't have to change what you're doing. God will actually work through the Holy Ghost to actually take your life and help you through all of your challenges wherever you're at.
Okay.
He just wants everybody to know that you are loved and cared for, and he wants everybody to be a child of his.
Yeah, I think I see where you're coming from, and I see that the belief is, obviously it's done very important things in your life, and it's really an important belief of yours. I think what I'm really trying to understand here is I just envision a scenario where I'm talking to a Mormon or a Muslim, and they're telling me very similar things about how the belief works in their life and how God has helped them and has given them hope and things like that. And I'm trying to figure out how we could decide, if I were to follow Christianity or follow Islam, like what would I need to know that you could tell me or Tommy could tell me that would help me make the decision, or is that just something that we can't do?
Well,
I don't know.
I can tell you exactly what the decision is. There's an exact verse that talks about it, and it's Romans 10:9 and 10.
Okay.
Romans 10:9 and 10 says, if you say with your mouth and believe in your heart that Jesus Christ died on the cross to forgive you for your sins, then you will be saved.
If a Muslim said, I want you to believe if you believe in your heart that Allah is a true God, and if you just believe it in your heart and and you follow certain passages of the Quran, and if he tells me that, what is he telling me different maybe than what you're telling me? Maybe that would help me a little bit.
What he's saying is that somebody that actually never said that they were God, ever anywhere in their entire...
If Tommy says something along the lines that, a God is a God, and our God, you don't have to proclaim to a God to be a God, you're a God. I'm not speaking for Tommy. I don't even know how that works.
No, I know.
I don't know if that's true or not. But if he says something along those lines, does that change anything?
Well, if I said that I was a car salesman but I wasn't,
okay,
then you wouldn't go and say you're going to go do what you're going to say that you are.
Yeah.
If I said I was a computer guy,
right,
then you're which is what I am. That's what I do all the time. If I said hey, that's what I do, then you're going to ask me for advice in that particular area.
What if I proclaimed that I was a computer guy, and I wasn't?
Yeah. Then there would be evidence.
Okay.
So the evidence in doing that would be, okay, what can you do? And you could talk the language of actually computers and not. But when somebody asks you things like, tell me what the OSI layer is, or things that were specific related to that.
So there's a test.
Yeah, there's a test.
So if I proclaim myself to be a computer guy, or if I proclaim myself to be a God, or anything, there's a test that we could perform to find that out.
Yep.
So in the case of your belief, what test could we do to find out the truth value? Because if it's true, I want to know it. And if it's not true, I don't want to believe it. If it's true, I'd like to believe it. And if it's not true, I don't want to believe it.
Right.
Just like anything, right?
Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So the truth, usually, in a court of law, normally you have witnesses.
Yeah.
And so there were 12 witnesses plus 500 others, and basically there was actually a lot of documentation from people that weren't even from Christian backgrounds. They were, other denominations, other things like that have all written about these things. And we actually have more documentation through all of the transcripts that have been found that actually tell about this.
Okay, so there's documentation. So now we're getting, I think, the reason behind your belief is that there's documentation that talks about that belief being true.
Exactly.
Okay. And I'm not saying this is the case, but if there was some other documentation, or someone found some new Dead Sea Scrolls or something like that, or something happened with the documentation, more documentation, that maybe said something different. Are you saying that you'd have less confidence in the belief?
Well, since that hasn't happened, that's actually why I do.
Just hypothetical. Just hypothetical.
No, and that's the case, is that basically, what it actually says is that a jot or a tittle will not change. A jot or a tittle is basically like minimal.
So you're saying that kind of evidence wouldn't change your belief?
Well, having something that is, you could have corruption can happen.
Yeah, sure.
So if you actually, but the thing is even if something says something that is not, so it's kind of like translations.
Yeah.
When you look at a translation of the Bible,
right,
sometimes people say, oh, well, what translation do you actually listen to or like?
Right.
And frequently people need it in their own language.
So I think what you're saying, so I didn't mean to stop you there, but that you have the belief, and the reason why you have the belief is the evidence of manuscript, I think you're telling me.
Yes,
But if that manuscript were to somehow change or be different or new information, that wouldn't change the nature of the belief. So I'm trying to really get down to, go ahead.
you're actually, what I would have to do is actually prove the authenticity of it. So some of it would be how relevant is it to the current one,
Okay.
and also because basically tracing back, even the oldest ones that they have match the ones that they have now.
Okay.
So there may be somebody that tried to corrupt it,
Okay.
and that would change
If you
all the ones that have.
But if you found, I mean, if there was some new manuscript, and to your satisfaction that you thought that it wasn't corrupt, it was legit. I mean, to your satisfaction, like, oh yeah, this seems like this is this was written in the right time period, in the right, would you then, at that point, reduce your confidence in the belief, or would it be at the same level it is now, or what do you think?
No, well, the main thing that actually has been an evidence of faith is actually how God's transformed my life.
Okay.
So that's the final kind of thing of
So
how.
that's the main reason.
That's the next thing that actually has brought it to the next level of saying, Christ has done so much for me and through me and to me that, and I know so many other people that have had similar types of.
So it's the personal experience.
Personal experience
of what
Yep.
Christ has done in your life.
That's correct.
And if Tommy says, I believe strongly in Islam because of what Allah has done in my life, and I really believe it, and I know, and I sense it, and I know how my life has changed, we're saying still that his belief is not correct, but I'm just
Yeah, no, I
Okay.
understand.
Yeah.
If he has the peace of God in his situation and he wants to believe that, he can believe that. I mean, it's totally okay for.
Is it true?
Well, what he wants to believe, he can.
But is it?
But the thing is, to me, I believe Christ, and I don't believe that that's true.
But
And
okay,
he
so
can.
if he believes it, it's not true.
Well, if he believes it, even though it's not true, from my perspective, he's allowed to have his
Oh,
belief.
sure. Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of like.
no, we're saying that
I'm-
we're going to respect everybody's beliefs. Yeah, sure.
I'm not saying that I don't respect somebody.
Yeah.
What I'm just saying is that I personally believe what I believe, and even if they want to believe something that I don't believe, I'm not saying that everybody has to do it my way.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But the thing that I am saying is that Christ doesn't say there's many different ways into heaven.
Yeah.
He says there's only one way, and that's through Jesus Christ.
Sure. And I think the reason why I'm asking that question is that I think you're telling me the main reason why you believe the belief is what the personal experience of what Jesus has done in your life and how you've changed. And I get that. And I'm just thinking of a scenario where Tommy could say basically very similar things to me about his religion. And as a third person, I'm thinking, well, you're saying it because of, very similar reasons as Tommy's saying it. It's like, well, if I really want to know what's true in the world, if I want to know kind of an objective, universal truth, if that's my goal, I want, I'm trying to think of how we could differentiate between the beliefs, if we can, if that's even possible.
Well, I mean, and I'll just say that I would encourage them to take the app called Bible.is
Yeah.
and actually take that and read, listen to it.
Right.
And it also allows you to read it too.
Yeah.
But if they were able to hear it and listen to it and basically understand what it is saying.
Jesus, you're saying if you kind of have some special knowledge, and if he just knew that knowledge that you have,
I think that would do it.
If he could see things your way, if he could step in your shoes for a little bit.
Well, actually there's two problems.
Okay.
A lot of times it's very difficult for somebody in many other religions to actually leave the area that they're in because they're denounced. I mean, so if you actually have somebody that leaves the Islam religion,
okay,
their whole family cuts them off.
Okay.
And same thing with the Latter-day Saints, their whole family cuts them off. Those types of scenarios don't happen within. Well, it can happen.
Yeah.
It can happen. Somebody could have the wrong perspective and does the wrong thing, but that's based on people doing the wrong thing. It's not based on God doing the wrong thing.
I'm trying to follow you. I missed you in that last part.
So people could
Yeah.
disown somebody
Sure. But
based
I see.
based on, so if somebody says, "Hey, I'll disown my son, my grandfather, my whoever," that's
Sure.
a choice too. So I can't control somebody else's attitude. All I can do is control my own.
Yeah. I wonder what that says about a belief when people stay in a belief other than for the reasons of that belief being true. If a person stays in a belief because of their family, or if a person stays in a belief because of how that belief works in their life and makes them, cope with things, or how a belief can help ease their social discomfort. I mean, a million reasons. I wonder what that says about you know what I'm saying?
Frequently there's fear of consequences.
Yeah.
So what will happen is if somebody is comfortable where they're at.
Right.
So an example, what if you were a Latter-day Saint?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying this as an example. And you're employed by Latter-day Saints.
Mm-hmm.
You go to church by Latter-day Saints. Your whole community is Latter-day Saints. And then you say, I no longer want to be that.
Right.
Then you just lost all of your community that you normally have.
And that's the reason why. Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying. I think that's the reason why that person was there, because, like we're saying, wasn't because of the truth value of the belief. It was because of what that belief, how it functioned in their life with the people around them, and how the support it gave them, and I mean, it could be a million reasons other than the truth value of the belief.
Right. That's correct. Yeah.
So we're saying that doesn't happen with Christianity, but that
it can.
Okay.
I mean, but that's on somebody else. I'm not the person that would do that to somebody. If they decide they wanted to go somewhere else and do that,
yeah, sure,
then that's their choice.
Right.
But I would never do that to somebody, but somebody else could, and that's their choice too.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I'm not saying that happens all the time. I'm saying that there's a propensity to have somebody, be like, oh, well, you're not doing the letter of the law, rules, types of things. And unfortunately, rules are not relationship.
Maybe a quick thought experiment, if you don't mind. Will help me. And let's just say that I believe that Buddy Holly, the musician.
Yeah.
Buddy Holly, I believe to my core that he's a god. And the reason why I believe that Buddy Holly is a god, and he works in my life, and since I've believed in Buddy Holly, I met my wife, and I've some really good things have happened. And my whole family believes, Buddy Holly is God, and let's just say, just for the sake of this conversation, Buddy Holly is not a god. Buddy Holly is just a dead musician, right?
Right.
But there's all these other reasons that I believe in Buddy Holly, and I'm trying to think, how could I find out that Buddy Holly is a god, if he's a god, or he's not a god, if he's not? How could I find that out, if I'm believing in Buddy Holly because he's a god versus believing in Buddy Holly because of these other reasons? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand. So let's look at the evidence.
Okay.
And so in the evidence of the writings of Buddy Holly,
okay,
did he go and ever say in any of his, many songs that he had, did he say, hey, this is what I believe? I am telling you that I'm not just a musician.
Yeah. And what if in my belief system,
right, I understand.
I believe that Buddy Holly is a god, and one of the reasons I believe that Buddy Holly is a god is I believe that true gods don't have to proclaim themselves gods. They're just gods. They just do what they do, and they're gods, and I can choose to believe in Buddy Holly being God or not. You know what I mean?
So what normally actually proves to be gods is actually having the miracles, and the other thing that frequently happens inside of gods, which people that were the prophets, they were actually, if they didn't go and do the things that were saying, they actually would tell the future.
Okay.
So they actually would say, here is what's going to happen in the future, and then if it didn't come to pass, they'd actually stone them.
So if I listened to Buddy Holly songs, and through listening to his songs, I had a glimpse into the future, and something happened. Like I listened to a Buddy Holly song, and it said something about that I'd meet a woman, and then like the next day I met my wife, right?
Uh-huh.
That would make that belief more true because it was a predictive.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
saying that you suddenly have a association of what this song did to
Yeah.
actually being something that brought you to a place in the future but the thing that actually happens inside the Bible is there are things that they say that have been predicted. For instance, Revelation is actually one that talks about a lot of the things that are going to happen
Yeah.
and still haven't all happened yet, but some things have.
So I'm still trying to, and I appreciate you hanging in there with me because I can be dense sometimes, but I'm really trying to understand. I'm really trying to get down to the reason behind the belief of yours. So I'm trying to understand because, we were talking a little bit about what it does in your life, and then we're talking a little bit about the evidence of the Bible itself, and then we're talking about kind of predictions of the Bible, and I'm really trying to get down to why you believe what you believe.
Yeah, I understand. It's faith. I mean, it comes down to faith.
And by faith, what do we mean?
Faith actually means that you believe something. Well, even Christ said, that you believe. Blessed are those who have not seen Christ, but have believed, and they believe it based on the writings. So when you have all of the writings, actually the writings that are in the Bible are the things that are telling you about all the things that God did.
No,
And
so I'm sorry. So faith means
that you're believing something, like you would believe. I mean, if you were believing Buddy Holly is.
well. So Buddy Holly's not.
I'm sorry. I have to use the restroom though, real quick.
Oh yeah, you got it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I have to.
Yeah, of course.
I drank
Yeah.
this.
Of course. That's a lot of water.
And
yeah, of
a
course.
gallon.
Yeah.
I'm on a cleanse right now. So
Yeah, you got it, man.
I have to do that
Yeah,
real quick.
Yeah, it's good chatting. Yeah.
One moment.
Oh yeah, sure.
Sorry. Much more enjoyable.
Okay, good.
Relax.
Yeah.
I just drank this.
Oh, I know. I get it. I get it. It's a lot.
That I'm on is.
That's a ton of water.
Yeah.
I couldn't hold out half as long as you did with that much water. Yeah.
All right.
So when we left off, you were telling me, you mentioned faith, and I was trying to understand your definition of faith. That's where we were. Yeah.
Well, the Bible says it's putting your hope in something that you can't see, because you can't see God.
Are you saying that faith is believing in something where there's no evidence for that belief?
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
not actually not no evidence. It's that you're actually not seeing God Himself, but you do have evidence in other ways, like the manuscripts that are talking about the creation of the earth and Jesus Christ dying on the cross.
So if I could understand that this is the difference between evidence and faith. So if you have evidence, do you need faith? I'm
Well,
trying to
they're
understand.
both together.
Oh,
Because faith is believing. I mean, because it's not just saying I believe in something that isn't true, because that's called deception. I mean, if you actually believe something that isn't true, then
Right.
it's
right.
actually you're deceived.
Sure.
So believing something that is true is, it's one of those things that you're trying to go and each person has to wrestle with this, because it's up to each individual to actually go down these roads to say, how are you convinced by these things? And for me, it was reading through the Bible
Yeah.
helped me to actually have a understanding of how a lot of the things that are in this world all existed,
Right.
along with how we actually get salvation and go to heaven.
Okay. Yeah. I'm just trying to understand that. Like if someone, maybe with my claim with Buddy Holly, like if someone says, "How do you know Buddy Holly is a true God?" Right?
Well, are you going to get to heaven through Buddy Holly?
Or am I going to get to heaven through Buddy Holly? Sure, that makes a lot of sense.
I mean,
And I say, well, I have evidence that Buddy Holly is a true God because I listen to his music and the music talks to me, and because of this, things have happened in my life, and that's my evidence. And that's something. Is that something different than faith, or is that evidence?
well, faith without any type of backing
So
at
faith
all
without
is
evidence
not,
is.
yeah, that's not true faith.
So what's faith without evidence?
Yeah, faith without evidence is really deception. I mean,
Okay.
you don't have anything that is being, you're actually believing something that's a lie if you actually have no evidence that actually says it.
So if I'm deceiving myself with Buddy Holly being a god, how could I find that out?
Good question. Try praying.
So if I pray and Buddy Holly answers my prayers,
Well,
he's true. If he doesn't, then he's not true, and that's my test.
what I mean is you would pray, pray for understanding.
Okay.
I mean, basically, what I would do is I'd say things like, the way that the Bible. Now, I use that as my. That's my worldview, and part of it's because I actually have had a transformed life from it.
Yeah.
And not everybody, it's you can't. I'm not just saying that. Trying to explain how I could.
Sure. Take your time.
So, part of the rest of the story for me
Yeah.
was I ended up actually having 4 children total, and 3 of my 4 children ended up having open heart surgery.
Oh my goodness.
So, they basically only one of them passed away,
Yeah, yeah.
but the other ones are healthy. They're living. They're good. But the thing is it's not just even if he didn't help me through
Right.
actually having those children and having them recover,
That wouldn't.
that still wouldn't sway
that
my
wouldn't
faith.
change your faith. Okay.
So, a faith.
Is there
Well,
anything?
Actually, there's one other thing I just thought
Okay,
about.
please go ahead.
The apostles, all of them died. They all died excruciating deaths,
Mm-hmm.
and none of them actually said that they were not followers of Christ. So,
Well, let me ask you this question: is there anything that you could learn, anything at all, that in your mind would reduce your faith from like a 10 out of 10 to a 9.9 out of 10? Is there anything, and I'm not saying there is, there might not be, and that might not even be the correct way to look at it, but I just would want to know if there's anything at all that you could learn that would reduce that strength of faith. And I'm kind of curious what you think about that.
well, actually, one thing, I thought about that, and actually, even Joseph Smith, when he said that an angel of light came to him and told him that all these religions are corrupt,
yeah.
that actually wouldn't even change my faith either. And the reason why is because actually the devil was an angel.
So it seems like we've gotten to the point where this is a very strong faith of yours, and it's pretty unmovable at this point. At this point, you're going to believe it. And I guess, and my question is, and this is not just my question to you, it'd be my question to Tommy, it'd be my question to anybody with any like, super strong belief or faith, would be, is it useful to have a belief, any belief whatsoever, that can't be shown to be incorrect if it's incorrect? I'm not saying it's incorrect, but if it's incorrect, because if a belief can't be shown to be incorrect, then how do we really know that it's true? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I
Am I being
understand what you're
clear?
saying. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and that's why I was saying evidence-based.
Right.
Because the things that you have to do is you have to go down an evidence list.
But I think you're telling me that regardless of all that, you're going to believe this. This is a strong faith of
Yes,
yours.
it's going to.
It doesn't matter. We could talk about evidence. We could talk about personal experience. We could talk about all that, and it's very important to you. But that's not going to. That would not change the belief. That would not change your faith.
I will definitely believe it, no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's basically unshakable.
Yeah. Yeah. I see that.
I mean, that's
Right. And if I said that my belief in Buddy Holly is unshakable, there is nothing anybody can tell me that will change my mind. I will believe Buddy Holly is God, and there's nothing anybody can say to change my mind. What do you think about my belief about Buddy Holly?
well. What I would say is that the proof will happen when people die. So that will be the proof, because then somebody's either going to go to heaven or not. And I actually feel a great deal of comfort and peace, and I don't have any type of doubt in my own mind. So that's one of the things that I would say there's no reason to, not have that faith. And based on everything I've read, and I've read the Bible many times, and basically that's something that I just don't have any doubt in my mind, and I'll have it till the day I die.
I really appreciate you talking with me. How do you feel like this conversation went?
I think it went great.
Good, good. Yeah, I really enjoy talking to people about their beliefs and how they form them and the reasons why they have them. And yeah.
Well, and it's one of those things too that everybody, they need to go through and search their heart, their mind, their soul, and God made it. So, if they believe a different God, ask God to show them what's right. Ask God, say, God, show me the truth, enlighten me, open my eyes, help me to understand these things.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you telling me all this, because I really think I get a much better sense of where you're coming from, and how the belief developed, and how important it is in your life, because obviously this is an extremely essential belief for you. Yeah, I do appreciate that.
No problem. And what's your name?
I'm Mark.
Hi, Mark. I'm Curtis.
Curtis. Yes. And this is it's just what we're doing. It's called, and I mentioned to you before, it's just called Street Epistemology, and I'm trying to find out how you know what you know.
Well, hermeneutics is actually the study of words. And so frequently they were actually written by multiple authors in the Bible.
Yeah.
There were Aramaic, Hebrew, and Greek.
Yeah.
And so you actually have all these different books, but they're contiguous with the thoughts. And they're written by different authors and all this stuff. And it's written by people that were eyewitnesses. So the eyewitnesses are the people I'm believing. And lots of eyewitnesses.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it, Mark.
I hope you'll.
All right.
I hope you'll check out the interview. Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
So where's the site?
It's
Very nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.